Today's guest, she helps world-class entrepreneurs make faster decisions. But her own journey started with months of obsessing over glass jars.
The only thing that was holding that from moving forward was my decision about jars. It took me months to actually decide to say, no, you know what, I can redesign.
After 15 years in Deloitte, she didn't just change jobs. She rewired how she thinks, she leads, and chooses.
A lot of people think like if I make the wrong decision, so they spend all their time thinking about what could go wrong. The focus is on the fear. Wherever you put your focus is essentially, what you're going to get in return.
She's consulted with some of the world's top leaders and global CEOs. Her weapon, helping them bypass their brain's craving for safety and decide anyway.
We don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. So practice.
So Linda, it's actually really, really exciting to have you here. I've been trying to make this happen for a long time. We're finally here. So welcome to the Limitless CEO podcast.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're more than welcome. I know you've been traveling, Mrs. International. You've been Italy, France, now you're going to the US next week. So I'm glad I could catch you before you next left.
Yeah.
So as we get into today, I really want to start with your origin. You spent 15 years in Deloitte before shifting to entrepreneurship. What sparked such a big pivot? That industry, this industry.
Yeah.
How did coaching accidentally come into your life? What's the story behind all that?
Well, I was working at Deloitte in Canada, and because I'm Canadian, I'm originally from Canada, and my husband was transferred to the UK. So I was transferred through Deloitte. I got a new role in the UK. And I was working for Deloitte Canada, or Deloitte UK at the time. And one of the girls I was working with, she wasn't doing so well in her role. So I was unofficially mentoring and coaching her. And so she found a new role in the organization with my support. And what ended up happening is she actually was seconded into the coaching department for Deloitte UK. So she calls me up one day. She's like, Linda, do you want to be a coach? I said, I don't know. Do I?
Did you know what coaching was? What year was this?
I don't know. It was over 15 years ago. So what is it, like
2010. So
yeah.
Coaching wasn't even a real thing back then.
Yeah,
now it's everywhere. But.
Yeah. And it might have been like 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. And so she says to me, you can submit your business case to be accepted so that you can be trained as a coach for Deloitte. I was like, oh, okay. Do I want to do that? She's like, yeah. I was like, okay. I didn't really know what it was about. I had never had a coach myself. Apparently, if you ask my mom, I've been asking questions my whole life. So ever since
we've all got our inner coach.
That's right. So... she says, okay, this is the deadline, and I'll remember my whole life because the deadline was actually during my ski holiday. So every year we would go on a ski holiday when we used to live in Europe, and she sends me a message, Linda, I'm on my ski holiday having a meeting, as you do when you work in corporate. And she says, the deadline's today. You have to submit your business case. And I was like, oh, okay. So I just, quickly submit, bullet points. I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 pages, whatever it was. Submit that. I get accepted. So they send me the confirmation the first day of the coaching training because I'm going to do the training. So the first day I go there, and I'm not even kidding, Hussein. I get there and I'm like, I'm home.
Nice.
This is where I belong.
So you just knew exactly.
I knew as soon as I started that training, I was home. And that really was the accident that led to where I am today.
I know we always tell our stories and we just cut a lot of, important information. You mentioned that you knew you was home, which basically meant you realized that you hadn't been home. So I'm just curious about what that looked like, in the previous side of Deloitte.
Yeah. So the work I used to do, so I used to work in the global tax and legal knowledge management team. Ooh, that's a lot of words just to say that I actually used to work in a team that used to help people optimize their work. And I used to teach them how to communicate amongst themselves. well, and I'm just going to go to knowledge management for a second. There's kind of two ways of thinking. Most businesses, and even in 2025, what they'll do is they'll have just in case. It's like, we're going to have a place where we store information just in case somebody ever needs it. So imagine it's kind of like a phone book, right? So, or like the old, I don't know if you used to have those in the UK, the old yellow pages.
Oh, yellow pages,
yeah, right? Those big things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if you needed to find, I don't know,
Someone's phone
a
number.
plumber, you'd go in and you check the
Before
phone book.
Google.
Right. So that's, how people used to manage information. And what I was going in and helping them do is kind of like do the switch from the yellow pages to sort of Google. So it was like just in case, which was the yellow pages, to just in time, which is like, how can I access information? Who do I need to be? What do I need to do to be able to access information more quickly, more effectively, and leverage the 250,000 people who used to work for Deloitte or around the world, or whatever the number was at the time. And that's really what I used to do.
And did you enjoy that?
I really enjoyed that. Actually, I had a lot of fun doing it. And while I was doing that, I also had this parallel thing that I was doing on the side, which was I wrote a white paper for gender diversity. So the global tax, we found out that one of the CEO of the French tax firm for Deloitte had extraordinary diversity from top to bottom. And at the time, again, this is going back at least 15 years, gender diversity was, especially in the sort of accounting, tax, like those kinds of areas, it wasn't so equal at the top. So we decided that we'd go and interview him and all of his, a lot of the women in the group. And I ended up collaborating with the United Nations, Harvard Business School, and wrote a white paper, which then eventually won him a Women Empowerment Principal Award. Now, this is important because I did all of this, and I was doing my full-time knowledge management job. I did this white paper with this collaboration, and I had moved countries at that time. And my supervisor at the time had told me I wasn't very good at managing change. I was like,
Interesting.
oh, okay, all right. And I was like, oh, well, that's your perspective. And so this is where I started, thinking about different things, like what is feedback, how do people communicate, what am I communicating, right? And when I went into coaching, it's really, really easy for me to go into coaching because I had, had these reflections and, considerations in the past. And I can't remember what your question was.
Well, you basically got there, which was really good. I said what happened before you got into coaching. The reason I asked that question is because a lot of the time you meet people, world leaders, coaches, mentors, trainers, and there's always this story of, there was this trigger that led to a craving, and, I wasn't satisfied, and I went to see this guy, and then he told me, what do you want to do, and blah, blah, blah. And in your case, you just kind of stumbled on it, which is pretty cool, but obviously everything in hindsight kind of led to that moment. So it's really good to hear. So then let's fast forward to today.
Yes.
You're coaching some of the world's top people, CEOs, executives, and everything else. What are you coaching them on?
Well, the people who are the most successful, I'm coaching them on their mindset. I'm coaching them on the tiny little tweaks that it takes, for them to be the person that they need to be in order for them to achieve the results that they want to achieve. And I call them tiny little tweaks, but they're usually huge leaps. Yeah.
You say one of the things I've, doing my research here, mastering quick decisions as an entrepreneur is one of the most important things you can kind of master.
Yes.
Quick decisions are crucial for entrepreneurs. Why? Why is speed so important?
Yeah. So a lot of people are often looking for certainty. They're looking for safety. I mean, this is also part of how our brains work, right? The two default brain functions are safety and familiarity, right? And so our brains are always trying to keep us safe. So, and this is because the part of our brain that hasn't evolved since we were in the caves, you know, we used to roam around and we'd have to be very,
Vigilant.
alert as to, if there was a saber-toothed tiger or a cave bear that was going to come around and have us for lunch, well, it was better for us to, be aware of that. So we were always looking out for the danger. So that's one of the default modes. The second default mode is familiarity. So what happens is that when you do something new, when you learn something new, when something significantly changes in your life, it takes up a lot of brain energy. So our brains are like, okay, you know what? This human, I need to make sure they're safe, but I also need to make sure that they're conserving energy. So in order for them to conserve energy, I'm just going to go and reach into the brain files and take what I know is familiar, and I'll just stick with what's familiar. So what I do with my clients is, well, first of all, I explain that to them, and I say it's going to be normal that there's going to be some resistance. And a lot of people who do coaching, they come into coaching, but they're not really sure what's going to happen. And if they're not forewarned about the resistance part, they will oftentimes, they will just drop off. It's like, this is too hard, this is too complicated, right? Because that 10x...
I want to dive into something there you just
Yeah.
said, which is really cool. You
Okay.
said most people come into coaching, they don't know what to expect.
Yes.
I want to dive into something here. In your opinion, why are most people never really thinking about a coach or not aware of what a coach is? How comes? Like adults, fully grown, successful men and women who have managed to lead such levels of success in your experience, how have they never found out about something so fundamental to their further growth?
Well, what I would, guess, because of course this is just a guess, is that, we all, especially Western society, right? We go to school, we sit our bums in the chair, and we're discouraged from getting help. We're talking about several years ago. I'm probably an older generation, and I know
It's
my
still
son.
like that now.
Yeah.
Don't speak to your neighbor, don't speak to
Right.
strangers.
You don't share.
Don't overshare. What if people judge me?
Yeah. And there's if you copy something, it's not right. Like all this plagiarism, all this stuff that they use all these terms. It's like, do not share. So I think, if I had to guess, I think there's part of that that's like instilled in people, right? It's like, sit down, wait for somebody to tell you what to do, because I can't even tell you how many clients I've had, coaching clients that I've had, who come and they're like, okay, tell me what we're going to do. I said, no, that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is we're going to actually build the muscle of you actually deciding what's going to happen. And for some people, they can't do that. Literally, they're like, no, I can't do that, right? They want to sit in their chairs and be talked to like they always have, because they did that probably at school. They did that maybe, in their family. Maybe they even do that in their job now, and it doesn't matter what level of the hierarchy they're at. Somebody's telling them what to do.
What are they making asking help mean about them that's leading them to this default response?
Yeah, it's my guess again is it's wrong and bad. It's like weakness. It's failure. Like if I can't figure it out, and when I used to work for Deloitte, it was like they would give everything and anything to us, and they were like, figure it out. It didn't matter. Yeah. It's like you would be paid for this job, but your job was like 10 times bigger usually. So it was a good school. Like it was a good place for me to learn how to expand in 10x. Because I did.
Imagine if I am technically a human. Imagine I'm already successful. I'm there. I'm sitting down and I'm listening to this and I'm going, you know what? Decision making. I've heard about this a few times. Making decisions fast is really, really important for my business. And I promise you, I do try and I want to do that. But I still don't make decisions fast. How are you recommending entrepreneurs build the confidence to decide faster? Because it's not like they don't know they need to decide faster. They're just not able to do it. How are you recommending that they start to build that muscle that you talked about?
First of all, we need to reframe, let's call it the aftermath or the after of making decisions, right? So a lot of people think like, if I make the wrong decision, so they spend all their time thinking about what could go wrong. I have one of my clients, bless her, she wants to create a business, and I'm not even kidding when I say to you, Hussein, she came to the call and she probably had 50 reasons why she shouldn't create that business.
So
right?
it's cost.
Well, it's cost, but it's also fear, right? It's like the focus is on the fear. And as we both know very well, wherever you put your focus is essentially, what you're going to get in return. So that's where your energy will be.
So they're not necessarily
expended.
focusing on the cost of a lack of a decision. They're focusing mainly on the cost of making the wrong decision.
Yes, and what is it going to be like if I fail, right? And I don't know about you and your circles and your upbringing, but definitely in my experience, people don't usually celebrate failure very much.
Yeah.
It's like it's wrong and bad. It's a very taboo, and and I love the woman who created Spanx,
Sarah Blakely.
Sarah Blakely, thank you. And when she was young, her dad every day would come home and say, what did you fail today? What didn't work today? So she really had this mindset of, actually, it's better when I try things and they don't work, so that I can keep moving, through them quickly. So it's the fail fast. And when we don't make decisions quickly, what's going to happen is we're going to be the chokehold. We're going to be the one who's blocking, who's going to be slowing our lives, our businesses down. So this is why it's super important to make quick decisions. And I'm cautious as well, so I like to weigh the pros and cons, but then go. And I would say most of us as human beings have 100% success rate in figuring stuff out. Right? So if something is presented to you, you pretty much, if you've made it up to this point, you're pretty much guaranteed that you've been able to figure everything out up to this point.
You mentioned something, you said, you now have like a little strategy, you're cautious, but you do this. So it goes and tells me you wasn't born, nobody is, but you wasn't born a fast decision maker. How did you, what was your experience? How did you transition? How are you transforming? Your decision making.
It was through pain, right? So it's like, I want to do this, and I'll give you a really ridiculous example. I have my I produce some cosmetics, right?
We're going to talk about OB Organics.
Yeah, and at one point, I was like, oh no, I need specific jars. Like I have, really high standards. I use very high quality ingredients. I don't want to compromise the quality of the product, so I wanted some glass jars, right? So, and I had all these people like, oh, why don't you use aluminum jars or tin jars or, all these. I was like, no.
Everyone wanted to give their opinion.
That's right. And I was like, I need, and the jars that I wanted were like a specific height, and they were specific, and I couldn't find them. It was, or I had to order, a crazy large amount that I couldn't have, and I couldn't store it. Anyways, it would take months and months. And it took me a while. It took me months to actually decide to say, no, you know what? I can redesign. We can redo the labels and change the jars.
Yeah.
Right? And it's ridiculous because the only thing that was holding that from moving forward was my decision about jars. So,
you make me laugh. You just reminded me of a story. So it's about this very scene that we're on right now, this podcast. I had this thought to start this podcast, and I was like, everybody's in Dubai, and I wrote down on my phone like 50 names. I'm like, this is going to be a piece of cake. Guests are not going to be an issue. And, I was meant to start this in February. Kind of things got delayed, and I started in April, and then I shot episode 1, and I WhatsApped guest 2, and I didn't realize, obviously everyone leaves Dubai in the summer.
That's right.
Like out of this list, everyone's gone home. Everyone's gone to the US, Germany, Switzerland, London. I'm like, holy schmoly, I can't get any guests. So I had this, so now we're talking about it. I think a lack of decision making or analysis paralysis is perfection. People want to strive for perfection and be the best they can be.
That's right.
So my goal for perfection was, this is going to be an in-person podcast. It's going to be guest podcast. And I was like so fixated on this guest part. So while, a couple of the episodes were being edited, I was just like, I need to get another guest. I'm messaging people, sorry, not back till September, sorry, not back till August, sorry, not back till this. And you're obviously one of those people, again, you was like in America. And I was really getting in my head, but then I realized like everything had stopped. Yeah. And like now I said I was going to launch one every Monday, and like I had a commitment to myself. And then I'm like, hold on a second, who the hell said it had to be guests? So I just rented out one of these studios and I did 3 solo episodes. And I'm like, well, the world didn't end.
Yeah.
And you know what the craziest thing about all this was? This is actually a true story. The minute I recorded, obviously I recorded 3 episodes in one sitting.
Yeah.
As soon as I got downstairs, I turned my phone back on. And actually, this is a story that will probably go for too long, so I'm not going to share the whole thing. I got a text, hey, I'm available next week. Are you free?
Yeah.
Did that person. And I realized the minute I got out of my own way, like whatever you want to call it, God, energy, the universe, whatever it is, kind of just aligned, because I had unclogged that BS. And then now I haven't had a lack of guests. I've actually got an influx.
Yeah.
So
I love this story because the truth is that it's about trust. Like it's about trusting yourself. It's about trusting, that you have 100% success rate in figuring things out, which this is evidence that you have. And also being open to the endless opportunities and possibilities that are available to you when you get out of your own way,
100%.
right? So it's like, all right, well, I'm going to pivot. And we know that sometimes, if not all the time, things don't happen exactly the way we expect them to happen. So it's like, okay, I'm faced with this reality now. What do I do? Like, what's my choice? Do I go here? Okay, I'll go there. And if that doesn't work, then we continue to pivot. We continue to adjust. And once we've adjusted, I don't know, however many times, then that's actually what's going to allow us to achieve the result. And the truth is, the more we're going to trust and we decide quickly, the easier it will be for us to get to where we want to go. But the really magical thing is that we're probably going to go even further, bigger, better, faster than we could have ever imagined because we're being open to the possibilities.
Practical tip? Because I just want to make sure people walk away from this and don't just listen to another podcast episode. That's never been my intention. What is a practical tip that people can listen to this and go, you know what? I'm so glad this is coming up again because I've heard this a million times. I need to make decisions faster. And they're fixated on the how. What is a practical tip to start to build that muscle? Yeah,
it's to actually do it. So one of the things that I do with my clients is I get them to say, okay, how do I feel, right? And when you say it out loud, so let's say it's doing your 3 episodes or me, my jars, whatever the thing is. It's like, okay, what's the problem? We define the problem. You can write it down because that actually works. So you write it down and you say, okay, what are the options? And you say, okay, option 1 is don't record a podcast episode for until September, or the other one is do 3 solo ones. And literally write it down and feel how it feels to you. Like when you say, wait till September, does it feel expensive or does it feel like And then when you say, record 3 solo episodes, does that feel expensive or does that feel scarce or constrictive? And literally feel it in your body and go from that.
You know what? I love it when I speak to people like yourself because, geniuses have the tendency to say things, but I don't realize how foundational that is to them, but people don't realize this. And you mentioned something which wasn't even in your message. Write it down.
Yeah.
You're saying write it down to see how it feels. The problem with most humans is they don't even write things down. They're in their head. They're thinking about it. And I just imagine the cartoon where there's like steam coming out of people's heads, and they're thinking about it, but they never get out of their head onto a piece of paper with a pen. So, you're just like write it down to see how it feels. But the genius really is in write it down, because otherwise you're just going to be looping in your head, thinking the same thing. Once you write it down, you can see it. You can see, what your options are. And that's the true genius. So now the second, reason why people don't pivot is usually they're telling themselves a story. There's something about that. And I'm just curious about what you think of that. Why do people not really pivot? They have the strategies. They did write it down.
Yeah.
But they're still stuck. Why?
Yeah. So they have a very disempowering story. right?
Tell us more about that.
It still comes back to how our brains function, right? It's our brains wanting to keep us safe. So the story is usually about safety, right? It's like, I have to make sure I'm safe. I can't fail. Now, when we were in the caves, it was about wild animals maybe having us for lunch. But today, it's all ego-based, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he has more money than me. He has a better car than me. Has a nicer house than me. Has a better, partner than me. Whatever, the ego
So survival
stuff.
of the so before it was survival of the physical body, a bear's going to have us for lunch.
Yeah.
Today it's the survival of the ego.
That's
and as
right.
a result of trying to survive the ego,
we hold back, right? Because I don't want to feel ashamed, right? I don't
what
have...
are people going to say? How
Yes,
am I going
that's
to
right.
look?
That's right. That's right. And the truth is, most people who are doing something important and significant in their life are not paying attention and saying, oh, Hussein, that's so terrible that, you didn't do a certain thing or go a certain place or whatever, right? They're behind you, celebrating you and encouraging you. That's what those people are doing, right? The people who are complaining are usually people who are not doing anything or not much anyway.
Yeah, it's the same as that cliche saying, no one doing better than you is ever going to put you down. It's always the people that are doing worse than you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the people doing better than you are just too busy anyway, doing whatever they're doing.
That's right. That's right. I've helped a little, I've had a lot of clients who are afraid of public speaking. And so I'm like, what do you think? What are you thinking of when you're sitting down and listening to somebody speak? They're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, what? You're probably thinking about your grocery list, or you're thinking about your kids, like, at school, or, whatever. Oh, I have this little thing on my shirt, or, I mean, people are not paying attention.
That's actually, I wasn't, it's an interesting one. I used to be afraid of public speaking, but that's also because of the career path I was in before. It didn't involve this.
Yeah.
I was in tunneling.
Yes.
And, one day I went to a Toastmasters in the UK. It's like this little group that people meet up once a month for public speaking.
Yep.
And all visitors had to do was just stand up and say their name. That was like the equivalent of like public speaking. And I was like there with my orange high visibility clothing looking like a Christmas tree. And my legs were like shaking just because I had to stand up and say, hi, my name's Hussein.
Yeah.
And looking back at that, I really understand what you're saying, because if I look back, why were my legs shaking? Because I thought, oh, the whole room is worried about Hussein Yassin.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, they weren't.
Yeah. And I actually have a little tip, because I used to be like that, really, really, really nervous, like, oh my God, like I can't say. And especially when I remember this when I used to work at Deloitte, and what I noticed, I'll give you a little tip in a minute, but what I noticed is that the more like senior people were around the table, the more nervous I got. And then I was like, you know what? These are just humans. And the thing that really, really shifted it for me was the sooner in the meeting I actually spoke. And it could have been like, hello, how are you? Instead of just walking in the room and not saying anything and head down and eyes down kind of thing, which I used to do. I'd walk in the room and I'd start engaging in conversation like, hello, how are you? How are your kids? I mean, whatever it was, because I'm very curious, and that actually really helped me break out of that nervous energy. And I still do it today. Whenever I do something in a public forum, I'll try and speak
just
really,
break the
really,
ice
yes,
as soon as
that's
possible.
right. And so my voice is heard. So I'm like, for me in my brain, now it's okay, I've spoken, I'm over that.
So that's raised the question for me, because technically I still brute force it. But I just want to see your opinion. So like, this isn't no longer about public speaking, but it's a good metaphor and analogy to public speaking in regards to decision making and limiting stories. The way I handle limiting stories is I just brute force it. So like, for example, with the public speaking, I thought, I don't like this about myself, that I'm scared to speak in public. So I just started to go and get any opportunity to speak in public. First it was like in front of 3 people, then it's like BNI meetings, and then before you know it, I just started like, don't really care about speaking in public anymore.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessarily an easy path though.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, what's the alternative?
All right. So
then brute forcing
I mean, and you can brute force it, and by brute forcing it, you're actually going to end up kind of doing what I'm going to tell you in a second. But so what I really like doing with my clients is that I say, okay, take a week, right? Every single day, what you're going to do is you're going to write down in that week something that you did not like. Like, I don't know, somebody said something, somebody did something, somebody didn't say something, somebody didn't do something. You know, it's like this is what I call our stimulus belief response patterns. And all of us are functioning with these, right? And what happens is that something happens, and then we come up with, we have a belief about it, we have a story about it, we have something that we think about that, and then that creates our response. So, you know, you walk into a Toastmasters, you're thinking your story is, oh my God, I'm not good enough, like I shouldn't be here, I don't know how to do this. And therefore the result of that, or the response, is fear, it's anxiety, it's, you know, shaking legs, right? But if you walked into Toastmasters and you thought, this is just a room with people, you know, desks and chairs, what would your response be, right? So the power here is well, I should say the seat of our power is in the story, the meaning we give things. And here's here's the kicker, right? So the kicker is that most of the meanings that we have, most of the stories that we sort of superimpose, were based on in childhood, like usually between the ages of 7 and 12. Sometimes a bit before, sometimes a bit after, but that's kind of the range that we're looking at, right? By the time between the ages of 7 and 12, you've made up decisions, you've made some choices based on your environment, your education, you know, all this, and it's like, I will always, I will never, they are, they're not, like that, right? And so whatever is even remotely, even just a tiny bit resembles something that happened when you were at that age. And
this is usually unconscious. Obviously, you're not
course.
thinking to yourself, oh, my mom told me to get
No,
off the
no,
bike.
no.
And This is
It's
unconscious.
Yeah, totally unconscious.
You just know that you're saying to yourself, I'm not enough to speak on stage, or I'm not enough to launch a, you know, organic company.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
And then now you're like doing this.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're bringing the past into the present, and the response you're going to have is usually one that's very, very, very well practiced, right? Because you've done it for however many years. Yeah. And so you bring that in the present, and there you go. There's your pattern, and it just keeps repeating. Now, the way you want to, you know, the way you choose to break that is for 1 week, you record your patterns. So you say, okay, what happened? What was your belief? And how do you respond? And you see, what happened is not my interpretation of what happened. What happened is the facts. It's there's 500 people in the room. We're all going to agree that this happened, right? It's like the computer fell to the ground. Okay, that happened. And then the belief is, what's the story? What's the interpretation? What's the meaning you bring to this? Well, it fell to the ground because Hussein was so careless, he pushed it, and he doesn't care about me, right? Like that. And then what's my response? If that's the story I have, I'm like, oh, I'm so angry because Hussein is so careless, right? But if my story is, it fell, the computer fell off the table to the ground.
Could there be another meaning out
Exactly, like because I didn't place it on the table properly, or because the table was unstable. Okay, so, all right, well, these things happen, and therefore, you know, and so that's why I say the seat of our power is really in the meaning we're going to give to it, because that's going to determine our response. And what's our true responsibility in life? Our true responsibility is our response, right?
That's really fascinating, and I always try to like play the devil's advocate. So I'm like sitting there going, if I'm the person Linda's talking about, what made me think that he doesn't care and blah, blah, blah? And I've come at an answer that I know very well from talking to loads of people is, I said this last time, so now it's going to sound like I'm just repeating myself all the time. But I'm not an idealist. I genuinely am not. In an ideal world, I'm sitting on a beach, me and my husband, me and my wife, whatever it is, we're like so cool. It's very less likely that I'm going to respond in my old learned pattern because there's no pressure.
Yes.
But pressure brings out the true us, or maybe it's the less ideal us. So I'm in the person's head going, this is all great, but I'm under pressure. You know, got deadlines looming and everything else. And I'm arriving at the fact that we make certain decisions under pressure because we don't have time to kind of split the facts. So like the framework that you've said is, look, get clear on the limiting belief, might be that I'm not good enough, whatever it is.
Yep.
Which I've put in brackets. You have to have awareness to the thing. You can't hit a target if you don't know what it is. Awareness is the first step to the cure. You give it a meaning, so now you're aware of your meaning, you record it, you ask yourself, what happened, the belief, how did I respond? Someone's sitting there going, I've got a lot of pressure, I don't want to do this, So how do we make decisions under pressure then?
Well, so we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. So practice, right? Michael Jordan didn't become Michael Jordan because he thought, I think I'm going to be the best basketball player in the world by watching Netflix for, 25 hours a week. That's not how it happened, right? So he was practicing.
Practice and test, yes.
That's right. And so practicing, literally reframing your story. And if I don't know how long it's going to take. Some people it'll take 7 days, some people it'll take 7 years, or something in between. I have no idea, right? But whatever it is, it's going to require you to practice because it's such a great point that you raise, Hussein, because, some people are like, I'm going to read the book, I'm going to go to the seminar, I'm going to do the...
They want to learn about decision making.
Yeah, and they spend their whole entire lives learning, which is great. I have nothing, I have no problems with learning. Where it's not so great is that they don't take any of that information and put it into practice. And the information does not create the transformation. It's the action that creates it.
There's an example that's been in my head since probably like when we started talking.
Yeah.
And it's about, what do I need to eat? So I'm just going to bring it up here. How do you practice, not what do I need to eat, just in case anyone... People can't even decide what they're going to eat.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, well, how do I practice? But honestly, it's not that difficult to practice because we have decisions to make every single day. Now, they might not be... Chris Voss says something that I'm probably going to butcher. It's like you got to practice with low stakes to get the high... Something like that.
Yes.
If anyone's watching this, just Google it. We have low stake decisions to make daily. And that is the practice.
That's right.
If you can't even figure out what you're going to eat and then you think, but it's okay when I go and make a decision about, who do I need to hire or fire, then I'll be okay to make a decision. It's possible, but your likelihood drops.
Yeah.
So we do need to practice, and you've got opportunities every single day. Like, for example, just us coming here, your outfit looks lovely. I had to choose what color t-shirt to wear. I had to decide.
Matching.
Yeah, exactly. We all had to make little decisions.
That's right.
But we just didn't think about them anymore because of your point. That's actually how I thought about it. We've just been practicing how to get dressed.
That's right.
Luckily, my mum didn't have to travel from London to dress me today, because I've had that practice.
That's
but then we often say I'm not good at decision, but it's because we're not good at these other decisions that we think we should just have naturally. And that's just not going to happen.
That's right.
So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and that's actually a really, really good point, because one of the other things that people tend to do is they set goals for things that they've never done in a way that is like they have 10 years of experience. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you've never started a business in your life, and you say, okay, I'm going to start this business, and on week 1 I'll be this, and on month 3 you'll be this, and then inevitably it's not going to work out that way, right? And so what we want to do is we want to spend more of our, give more focus and attention to growth and learning goals. Those are the goals where you've never done it before. And then when you have done it before, that's where you can say, okay, I know that this is the process, this is it's going to take X amount of time because I've done it 10 times. When Michael Jordan was standing at whatever line and going to throw the basketball, I mean, there was no doubt in his mind how he had to throw it, at which, speed, angle, whatever, because he'd done it so many times. But the first time he did it, he didn't know. And so the more we practice, and we are inevitably going to get it wrong. And as a matter of fact, it's really great because I saw a documentary on Roger Federer. And the really, really interesting thing is that Roger Federer only ever won 50% of his games.
But he was one of the best.
The best in the world. If you go to the Baseball Hall of Fame in somewhere in the U.S., I don't know, there's something equivalent in Canada for hockey. The best baseball players in the world are only successful 23% of the time. So 77% of the time they're making
They're wrong.
mistakes. And what does that mean? They probably have a really, really great story about when it's going wrong. And that's exactly what Roger Federer had as well. It's like when things were going quote unquote wrong,
Yeah.
where everybody else is not able to manage their mindset, he was like, okay, I got this, right? And I'll be able to turn this around.
Yeah, going back to stories, I'm listening to you going, okay, cool. So like, what's the challenge? I think the challenge is in today's world, we don't see all that. We see the trophy day,
Yes.
and that's like the gift and the problem. The problem is we think that guy just got there.
Yeah.
He's lucky genes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we don't see the struggle. And then for me at least, when I tell people, they're like, oh, but it wasn't the same. It's like, well, I went through a struggle, but it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
No, but like you're different. Why? I'm not different. I promise you. Like I may be special to my mum, but to the world, I'm not
And your
normal.
wife, and your wife.
And my wife. And the problem is we only see trophy day, but we don't see the challenge. And you're like hitting on the nail on the head, which is we get rewarded for public what we practiced in private.
Yeah.
But the problem is going back to stories and beliefs is we have a belief that it can't be that these guys did something different behind closed doors. It must have been luck. It must have been this. It must have been the right place at the right time. But even when these greats are interviewed, they say, like, we went through challenges, and people don't almost believe them, or they believe them, but it's like it's blank. The other thing is, in business, the famous one is, I want to make $1 million in business, but in order to get there,
Who do you have to be?
who do you have to be? And we're going to jump into that, so don't ruin the surprise. But it's more than that. It's also having a belief that I don't necessarily need to make $1 million, I need to make my first sale.
Yeah.
And then when I've made my first sale, okay, great, now I need to make my first 10,000.
Yeah.
First 100,000, first whatever it is, 200,000 to $1 million, because either way, who you are at $1 million is not who you are at 0.
That's right.
And who you are at 0 is not even who you are at 10, and etc.
That's right.
And we just believe that, things are just kind of get quick schemes. Now, I'm probably the last generation that had to wait 1 week for a TV show. On a Monday, I used to wait for Prison Break, and then I had to wait for the whole other week. So I think I was lucky in that case. But today, people listening to this are in a whole different game because they like on this TikTok scrolling, things are happening fast, Netflix, Disney. And I think that's the challenge. So now, the reason I'm saying all of that is because there is a certain decision, one of the most important decisions, and you speak a lot about this, the 10X vision.
Yep.
Someone comes and they decide they want to change their life, they want to change everything. What happens?
Well, so a lot of people say, I'll 2X this, I'll 2X this, which is just a lot of the same of what they've done. So let's say you want, more time freedom, and you want more money freedom, or you want, relationship freedom. So you can come and go, you have enough money, you have great relationships, all that. And your business is going well, it's successful, and then you say, okay, now I'm going to 2X. So then you think in your mind, like, oh man, this is just going to be more of what I'm doing. So if you're working, let's say 10 hours a day now, can you even imagine working 20 hours a day? So that's kind of like, you're going to be working in the business and doing more of what you're already doing. And that's much, much harder and much more complicated and less appealing than actually saying, okay, I'm going to 10X this.
And people don't usually think about 10Xing.
They don't.
How comes?
Well, again, it's probably like the overwhelm. It's like, who do I think I am? How could I possibly 10X? But actually, the truth is that most people, especially business people, right, have already 10X themselves anyway, right? So, and 10X actually, it's, you ask yourself, all right, can I 2X? Yes. Can I 10X? Oh, no way. Unless, and then you say, unless what? And when you're clear about the unless, unless is usually, what do I have to stop? What do I have to not believe? What do I have to believe? What do I have to do, right? And it's more about working on your business than working in your business. And this is also important to remember that you'll need to be surrounded by really incredible people. So that's why, you have to know how to make decisions quickly. You have to trust that you're going to make decisions. And then if the decisions that you've made are not exactly, turning out the way you want, then you trust that you can pivot, you can change and adjust that as and when you need. And the more you do that, the easier it will be for you to go into a 10x sort of paradigm, because you'll be able to bring with you the right people that you need to have. Now, 10xing though, be careful, right? Because 10xing means that, as you said before, who you are at 0 is not who you are at 1,000,000, right? And so that means it requires an identity shift. So the who you are is your identity. It's like, what do you believe? What do you do? What do you not
today.
do? Yeah, or who you are at any point before the big shift, right? And there's a really great example, actually. It's the 10X book, and the guy, you know, he met this this, I don't know, it was one of his friends or something, and he was a smoker, and he said to him, you know, you're a really amazing guy, but you smoke a lot, which is,
Yeah.
and he said, oh, you know what, I've tried to quit so many times. And he said, okay, are you interested? Like, are you willing to quit? He's like, yeah. So he goes into this, you know, special center, and within 2 weeks he quits smoking. And then when he reflected on it afterwards, he said, you know, what was the sort of thing that helped you, that made you, you know, continue to be a non-smoker? And he said, I had to change my friends. And he was like, oh, okay. And because my friends were smokers and they were wanting me to be a smoker too, right? So this is something that we really want to pay attention to, because when your identity shifts, it doesn't mean you're going to have to change all of your friends all the time, right? But it means that the people know you for how they met you. So however you were when they met you, unless you've been growing together, which, you know, some people do, which is great. Some
Which is
people
also
don't.
rare. I just want to say it's very rare.
It's I mean, yeah, in the type of environment in which we operate, I think it's maybe a little more common. But you're right. It's like most people.
I'm always thinking in the general lane man world, like just
Yeah.
not in a derogatory term, just in case someone
Yeah.
says that. But just like generally speaking, people are just like, you know, heads down, go to work, Saturday, Sunday off,
Yeah.
just have some fun, come back Monday, you know, have dinner, go to sleep. And when you meet people, generally speaking, it's like either at work or in just some really random places.
Yeah.
And the average man or woman, they're not growth driven. And if
Yeah.
anything, growth to them is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So the being is so important. But most people are focusing on the doing and they're focusing on the having.
That's right.
The doing is be a faster decision maker, think about 10xing rather than 2xing. But the question is, how do people become the person who can even have the thought that they need to 10x, and then obviously become the person who can 10x?
Well, I wouldn't even focus on the how, because it's actually, it doesn't matter. I don't even know what the how is. You won't even know what the how is. It's why. It's like, why is that important to you?
Powerful answer, yeah.
And where do you want to
Purpose.
go, right? It's like, what's the direction of travel? And you will figure it out. And if you already know what that, like the how to do that, it's because you're taking what you used to do and you're bringing it into the present. And that looks more like 2x than 10x. 10x is like, you don't know what this is. You've never done this. This doesn't look familiar. And so it's like, I'm going to have the courage. I'm going to create confidence. Like, I'm going to be confident in myself. And that's why the exercising, practicing, taking, you know, making decisions quickly gives you more confidence that you can actually do it, and you can be in this 10x space and figure it out as you move forward.
So how does aligning your being kind of create your powerful 10x reality?
Yeah. So, all right, let's just talk about be, do, have for a second, because as you mentioned, most people are in the have, do, be, let's say,
When
paradigm.
I have it, then I'll do it.
That's right.
and
Or
I'll
like
become
when
it.
I have the perfect relationship or house or job or, you know, whatever it is that people want to have, then I'll be able to do the things that people do that have those things. And like, let's pretend money. Okay, so once I have $1 million, I'll be able to, I don't know, go shopping, buy a car, buy a house, I mean, whatever it is. And then, I'll be so happy,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't work that way. Because from an energetic perspective, like attracts like. So if you're miserable, right? And we all of us, I'm sure, know people like this, right? They think, oh, you know, I'm just focused on this thing. I'm just focused on this, you know, this result. And then they have the result and they're like, rah, 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 you know.
It doesn't fulfill the
That's
thing
right.
in them that they
That's right.
thought they wanted
because
it for.
They were upset or frustrated or miserable the whole way. And then what? They think that having this will make them happy? It doesn't. So what we have to focus on is, who do I choose to be? And I mean, you can choose to be everything and anything you want, but it's like choose to be something that aligns to the result you want to have.
The vision you want.
Right.
The mission and the vision, yeah.
That's right. And so it's like, who do I believe I'm going to be once I achieve this? I don't know, curious, happy, fulfilled. Okay, practice that now. And, we have some tools to do that, to practice how to be. And part of that is reframing the story. Part of that is our physical body. It's like, am I always like head down, sort of, frowning kind of look?
Yeah, that's me,
or
Mr. Frowning.
Yeah, or do I have a more open,
smiling.
light? Right, and it all has an impact. And the more we practice these things, and that's why, I always say, Hussein, if people actually knew what I know about coaching, every single person would have a coach. They would be lining up, like they'd be trying to knock our doors down, because if they knew how powerful it is, then, there'd be no question.
We kept saying practice, test,
Yeah.
become the person
Yeah.
who can take the action, who can have it. But really, what's coming up for me in my mind is people want to. It's not that they don't want to. Everyone wants a better life. But they're challenged by consistency. And especially the people we're talking to, business owners, entrepreneurs. So I'm just curious, like, you mentioned earlier that small, consistent actions outperform the,
Yes.
big shift.
Yes.
So how can, again, it's not about the how, but, what can they do to build consistent wins over?
Yeah.
It's for me, it's the marathon versus sprint. How can people
Yes.
go on a marathon rather than a sprint? Because a sprint, eventually you gas out.
That's right.
What can they do consistently so it's a marathon towards becoming that person who can take the action, who can have the result?
Well, pick something really small. I have one of my clients, and she really wants to get healthy. And so what she's doing right now, this is like a current client of mine, what she's doing right now is that every single day she's doing something that's exercise. And so the idea was that even if she does a plank for 1 minute, that's considered exercise. Now, I said, okay, great. And what are you going to say to yourself once you've done that? Because it's really nice for us to do this. We have to recognize it. Like, we have to catch ourselves doing the good stuff, right? Because we spend a lot of our time catching ourselves doing the bad stuff, the not so good stuff. So we must reprogram our brains to look out for what we're doing well. So what she's doing is every day she's doing something, like whether it's going for a walk, doing, HIIT or Pilates or just doing a plank, like literally. And I said, okay, the minimum that you're going to put in is what you're telling me is you're going to do a minute plank. She said, yes. She's been doing this for over a week now, and before she couldn't get herself to exercise. So you can see how just one tiny little thing, when we start practicing a tiny little thing, we're going to start getting success. And with the tiny little success, we're going to start stacking the successes one on top of the other, and that's what's going to allow us to actually move in the direction, whatever direction we want.
I say, start small initially so that you can win big eventually.
Yeah, that's it.
Because we want the eventually now.
Yeah.
And then we're like, we'll like wean down. But if you start small initially, eventually you'll win big, because me and you were talking downstairs, the compounding.
Yeah.
So obviously people don't really think in that way of, if I start today, the compound effect is crazy.
That's right.
Whereas if I don't do anything, then there is no compound effect.
That's right. Well, James Clear says the only self-help advice we actually need is be consistent.
Yeah, it's true. And that's the biggest thing people are challenged by. But basically with what you're saying, you can be consistent if you start small initially.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, actually, I would encourage people to start small initially, because remember our brains, right? Our brains are always listening, our brains are paying attention, right? And they want us to be right. So if you give too much to your brain at once, and you don't have any support around you to help you, then your brain's going to be like, oh man, I can do this for a while, but it's not going to be sustainable. I'm just going to go back to what's familiar, right? But if you do tiny little 1%, like if you do 1% today and then you do another 1%, or even if you did 1% a week, if you did 1% a week compounded, I think it's like 67% over the year. If you changed...
That's true.
If you changed 67% in a year, you would be unrecognizable to yourself and to others.
Most people would go, and even in this conversation we said to start doing X or Y, But the big real question is, people know what they need to start doing. So my question, one of my last questions to you is, what do people need to stop doing that's going to allow themselves to win small initially so that they can win big eventually, and then, you know, be consistent? What do people really need to stop doing that's going to allow this to happen, allow the start?
Well, stop comparing themselves to others.
Big one, yeah.
Stop criticizing themselves and focusing on what's not working, and start focusing on what is working.
Like the woman that came into your call and gave you 50 reasons why. Yeah.
Yeah.
So focus on, so I call that the what if up game. So it's like, what if it doesn't work?
Yeah.
What if it does?
That's right. That's
what
right.
if I don't make any money? What if I become a billionaire?
Yeah, yeah. And you're not going to know until you get there, right? Stop believing that failure is the end of the world, right? It's like, all right, keep going, or the end of the road even, right? So stop thinking you have to know how it's going to happen from now until eternity, because you don't, because it's going to shift, it's going to change, and I mean, even if we said 20 years ago, building a business, being an entrepreneur 20 years ago is completely different to what it is today.
And
right?
it's still changing very rapidly,
That's right.
fast now.
And so even if you knew, like, let's say we picked somebody up from, 20 years ago, we brought them into today.
They'd be confused.
You'd be like, well, I don't know how to do this stuff.
They'd be seriously
Yeah.
confused. Like, what
And
happened?
That's right. They could be the
Yeah.
most successful person, but they'd be very confused. So stop thinking you have to have it all figured out. And stop giving up your power. So a lot of people say yes. There are a lot of people pleasers. So stop saying yes to things that are a no for you, because that's essentially you're building somebody else's dream by saying no to yourself and yes
And
to
you're
them.
losing agency with yourself. I think a lot of the
Yeah.
times we say yes to things, we do them, and then we start to resent the other person. But the other person didn't even know that we didn't want to do it, and then we start to resent ourselves, and eventually one of the reasons, which I'm not going to talk about today, is the reason we're lacking consistency is because we've lost respect for ourselves almost.
Yeah.
Like we said we were going to do this so many times, didn't do it, so now we're just inconsistent, and we know we're inconsistent.
That's right. That's right. So that's right. Do what you say. For me, that's like, it's not only honesty, but it's integrity, right? You're like, you said you're gonna do this, well then do it. If you can't, make sure you communicate. Like, be clear with yourself.
Because sometimes the plan does change as long
That's
as,
right.
I think lesson focused is the key thing, because people are like afraid of failure because they're so success focused. But if you're lesson focused, you could technically never fail because you're
That's
always
right.
learning.
That's right.
So that's a good one. Two more questions. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given as an entrepreneur?
So when I was in university, I used to sell advertising for my university sort of like
Magazine.
guidebook. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. And I was able to get an appointment with the head of marketing and communications for the equivalent of BBC, but in Canada, so CBC. And I went to see him, and I was just part of the sales team. I wasn't the manager or anything. And he asked me, like, "Are your sales good?" I said, "Yeah, I'm probably one of the best ones in the team," which I was. For me, it was really super easy. And when I was young, people used to say I could sell, ice to
the Eskimo.
Yeah, that's right. And so he said, "Well, why aren't you the manager?" I said, "Oh, I can't be the manager because I don't know how to do the manager." And he's like, "Linda, you learn how to be the manager by being the manager." And I was like, "Oh,
That's
yeah."
good advice.
Right? It was so simple, but I was like, okay. So it's like you learn how to do anything by doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the challenge. We think that we have to read the book.
Yeah.
Look, so I am genuinely, like I tell people behind closed doors, the person I'm most afraid of is the person who doesn't read, doesn't learn, just kind of like, there's a caveat to this that I probably don't have time to explain, but I'm going to say this anyway. The people I'm most afraid of are the people that just listen to themselves and nothing else. And they just think experience is the only way. Experience is very important. So reading is important.
Yeah.
But at the same time, doing something is like priceless because you're going to learn 10 times faster. And as a result, things are just going to compound.
Yeah.
So it's been a blast. Honestly, it's been amazing having you. I just want to recap what you basically said. So basically you said, become more self-aware, reframe your stories, pay attention to your identity, become the person who can take the action, who can 10x and have the result, and just make decisions faster, and then set a 10x vision.
Yeah.
So is there anything else, last message you want to add?
Keep going, right? Like be in the
Just do it.
action. Yeah, and have fun. It's like seriously, have fun. You know, if nothing else, just keep being curious and have fun and it's gonna happen.
Thank you. So if anyone's listening to this, Linda's links are going to be below. Make sure you follow her on Elbe Organics. She's launching this amazing brand that is going to knock out all the bad toxicity that you're getting sold by big pharmaceutical companies when it comes to deodorant. And her website's coming soon. It'll be in the link when it's here. Thank you for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor. Please rate and review the show and leave a comment letting me know your biggest takeaways. Your feedback always helps me bring you even more incredible guests just like Linda. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.